All right. Good morning, good afternoon to everybody, wherever you are located. Thanks for joining us and welcome back to A Coffee with Carla. We are going to talk about men's mental health today with Nick Rogocki. Nick, I
Rogocki.
pronounce Rogocki. I knew I'd screw it up.
These things happen.
Sorry, Nick. I'm so sorry. Before we get started, I just wanted to say the show today is sponsored by Cortez Industries, and I'll post a link for them I'm doing shout outs for my people that I work with. So Cortez Industries is the sponsor today, and I think it's a great one for them to sponsor because we're talking about men's mental health, and our audience is going to be a majority of spray foam contractors. So welcome to the show, Nick.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited you're here. I want you to introduce yourself because I'm going to do some sharing while you do that. So tell us who you are, where you're from, give us a little background story, and then we'll get started.
Okay. Well, my name is Nick Rogocki. I live in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. I've been doing spray foam for 4 years now. So that's since 2016. I worked for a gentleman for 1 year, and then after that year, I bought the business from him, and I'm happy to say that I officially have it paid off after 2.5 years. So I'm
Wow.
well on my way, and I'm still learning, and I'm still green, but I have a lot of positivity behind me, and it's been a really fun trip.
Right. Wow, that's awesome. The name of your company again is, and where can they find you? We'll get that. We'll make sure we give you guys a shout out too.
Yeah, no worries. Green Home Insulation.
Yeah.
And I think the Instagram handle is Green Home Insulation WPG for Winnipeg. And the Facebook is Green Home Insulation. You can easily find me. Look for the leaf on the house and
Right.
be the one. I think there's two. You know, it's funny because I recently got I got a bill from a supplier, and I said, I haven't ordered product from you for over 8 months now, so this
Oh,
must be a mistake. And she's like, well, no, it's Green Home Insulation. I'm like, can you check your database to see if there's another Green Home Insulation? And it was
right.
somewhere in Ontario, but so I got that sorted out. But yeah, sometimes you find the wrong business.
That's interesting because I work with another company, and I said to him, I saw it come up in one of the groups, like Spray Foam Canada or something, and I said, "Do you know this group? Because they're the same name as you." And he's like, "Well, how did that happen?" I guess it didn't show up in the name search or whatever when you do that
Right.
for your business. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy. Sometimes that happens, but um, yeah, so we're going to talk about men's mental health. And I really wanted to also say thank you for reaching out to me when I threw it out to kind of the universe, the
Yeah.
universe of social media, saying whoever wants to come on and talk, let's talk about it. And you messaged me and we just kind of went from there. But I'm really glad you reached out. What made you reach out and want to start the conversation?
Well, we kind of talked about this previous, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, every time you hear about mental health, like men's mental health, it's very cringeworthy, and it's still
Right.
cringeworthy. I'm still cringing about it. It's got that social stigma to it that we definitely need to address because hey, we all have some sort of mental illness, especially in spray foam. The amount
Yeah.
of stress that's involved, the seasons changing, you have to adapt nonstop, and then you got to go home and bill out, and then you got to wait for business, and then you got to do the business.
Mm-hmm.
But that was kind of the main reason why I messaged you, and I think the exact thing I said is that, wow, that's a loaded topic.
Yeah,
And
you said that's a big conversation. Yeah.
yeah,
And it was like, yeah, it is, but we got to talk about it.
yeah, exactly. So it's as a male and as a dad,
Mm,
you never want to admit when you're feeling weak,
right.
or you feel like you can't overcome, or there's just you got a mental fog that's just kind of like hanging over you and you can't break through. I think in particular, spray foam is a very masculine trade,
Right.
and you're not going to see many guys post on, let's call it Spray Foam Worldwide, being like, oh, had a bad day, something bad happened to me, and I think I'm just gonna go home and I'm gonna take a bath and then I'm gonna drink some tea and go to sleep. Like that's not the conversation anybody's gonna have. And
Right.
that's not the choice that we have either. We have to push through, but we need to find a way to mitigate all these little things that nag at your brain.
Right. Yeah, and you're very right on that. What is interesting, I found too, since starting these conversations on this platform, what's been interesting is the people who have come on and been vulnerable enough to share their stories and what they've gone through. It's been very interesting because it's not even in the comments section. There'll be people that comment, which is always great, but it's the behind the scenes stuff that goes on after these conversations. That's which I'm glad they happen, because it's those people who are sitting there and they're in trouble and they don't know what to do. And they maybe not necessarily in trouble, but like they're in a bad spot and they don't know what to do. And if they see more people that look like them, that talk like them, that are just everyday people, there's going to be maybe that chance that they reach out to somebody and not feel weird about it. Because I think that's a thing for you guys. Women have an easier, I think that might be generalizing, but women tend to have an easier time, I think, saying to their friend, like, this sucks, like I'm a hot mess, whatever. You guys are more like, you're going to talk about work and why that sucked. And, but getting personal, that's a whole different thing.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. So how, I guess, talk a little bit about your own journey through this.
Well, we've got 4 very strong seasons here in Winnipeg, and like yesterday it was plus 33 and sunny and gross and humid, and then all of a sudden it's going to snap, and then we're down to an overnight of 11, cool, cloudy, and then we'll get a rainy season, and then all of a sudden it'll be minus 30. So I personally am fully affected by seasonal affective disorder, like SAD. So I've got to see the signs, and when I see the signs, I've got to, all right, Kaylin, my wife, can you please just make a doctor's appointment? And if it's a matter of being on a small dose of medication to kind of be proactive, I've really gotten a lot better at seeing the signs and then addressing it. I can just fully think about all the things that, just spike your brain to make you feel better, like to produce that dopamine. So it's like I start having crazy cravings for sugar. So I'll have a lot of sugar, and then I'll have a lot of coffee. And then I'll think about, okay, well, what's going to make me feel good? So I'll go do that, whether it be, trying to do something fun with the family or trying to get that kind of excitement going in your brain. But you can't always live like that. And sometimes you're going to just have some blasé days, and you have to be okay with it. But when you're on this kind of emotional roller coaster, it really helps to kind of see like, I know what's happening here.
So when would you say you started noticing that was a thing that affected you? Like how old were you, would you say?
Probably 20, 22, 23. I got married at 23, and I remember like the fall leading into my first year of marriage. It was like August. I'm like, got a beautiful wife, got this apartment, getting all my debt crushed. I had a decent job, but I still felt blue as hell. So it's like, okay. And then every year I go through it. So I'll go to the doctor, and then I'll go on a small dosage of an antidepressant, and then I'll, do it till like about May. And then I'll be like, all right, spring's here. Let's do this. Go off of it. And then by August again. Now, I haven't had a doctor tell me that that's like, well, you can't just take yourself off a pill, Nick. And I'm like, I know who I am and I know what I can
Mhm.
handle. And
Right.
from May till August, I don't need that. And I know myself better than you, doctor. So just give me what I need. But I also find myself getting very short with people. And if like a
Mhm.
loud noise, like a loud motorcycle, like little things just bug the shit out of me, become irritable. Kind of going off topic here, but yeah, 23, started noticing it and been dealing with it ever since. And it's all stems from a seasonal change.
That's interesting. I've had that conversation with a number of people with, especially living in Vancouver,
Oh, the
that,
cloudiest place on earth.
right. So I've said this to Rex, my husband, I've said, in Saskatchewan, where I'm from, it could be minus 45, but the sun is out. The sun
Yes.
is always out. And here it's like winter comes and it's pretty gray. And so that I
Yes.
know that affects a lot of people. And I know people who have come here from prairie provinces and so I don't know how you live there because I can't handle that, and people think that that isn't a real thing with the seasons that you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's very real. And I think people don't understand it maybe.
It's hard to explain something to somebody that they're not affected by it.
Right.
And then you think like, oh well, Joe whatever it isn't affected by it. Like, why am I such a weak person? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But like we're all different. We all tick differently.
Right. So when that started happening to you, did you just decide, I think I need to go to the doctor, or how did you come to that place where you did start going to the doctor?
As I see it being detrimental as far as like my mood towards my family, I immediately override how I'm feeling and I'll go and address it. Because like if I
Mm,
was just a single dude and I could be short with everybody and it wouldn't affect my life, then whatever. But I I can't let this thing affect my whole scope of life and not address it. And that's when you can't be selfish about it. You have to be selfless about it because it's no longer just affecting you, it's affecting everybody else. And that's kind of where I draw the line at that.
mm. How many kids do you have?
Two.
You've got two, and how old are they?
They're 8 and Rachel will be 7, 2 girls.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you guys have had to go through the whole homeschooling thing through COVID and all that. How has that been?
It's been testing.
Yeah.
I can't, yeah, it's, I can't take credit for that whole season because I was working, fortunately,
Mhm.
and my wife had to do all of it. And
Right.
I hats off to her because I mean the kids have been off for like 6 months now. It's
Mhm.
been nuts. So that's put a lot of stress and pressure on the family, but we're doing really good. And yeah, I gotta just thank my wife for putting up with all of that because
Right.
when she's home with 2 little ones all day, and then I come home and I'll be like, contractor A through Z, this, and she's like, I've been home with the kids all day, like I've got to really kind of set aside my stories and be like, all right, it's time for you to talk to an adult. What's up?
Yeah. Right. And so would you say that that has been a huge help to you, is having, your wife that you're able to talk to? Has that been an easy transition to open up and talk to her about what you are struggling with?
You know what? Over the last 2 years, I would say the conversation has gotten easier because I'm more willing to be vulnerable. If I come home and say, all right, it's time to make the appointment, but I feel like such a pussy. And my wife will cut me off right there. And she'll say, like, why do you downplay how you feel?
Hmm.
Because I think it was our first pregnancy, directly after, she suffered from postpartum depression, which
Right.
is a very serious thing. She's like, why do you think that it's okay for me to have postpartum depression? It's completely acceptable. But for you as
Hmm.
a man, you're not allowed to feel glum once in a while. and have to deal with that. I'm like, I don't know. It's just, you don't want to be weak. But now it's like, now I feel a little more vulnerable to just be like, yeah, time, season, let's take care of it. And she's very, very compassionate about it. And I think the flip side to this is, as males, we need to be compassionate towards, our wives or our friends. And I'll straight up call myself on it, where I'm not a compassionate person. And it's something that I need to grow as an individual. I'm not compassionate towards myself, my family, my wife. My kids is a little different. I don't know. Something changes in you when you have a kid. Like, you're just the most compassionate person ever. But I think that kind of coincides where you need to address how you feel about other people's mental illness or weaknesses, and you need to apply it to yourself.
Right. Where do you think that comes from? Is that something you're taught as a child? Is that society? What are your thoughts on that? That men are, man up and all of those things. Where do you think, how do we change that?
Change it by, I think we change it by reducing the amount of influences that strongly promote being so busy that you don't have time for your emotions. We've come to a point where it's like, we've had such prominent business and owners that, like, they'll go, I forget his name, like Gary Vandenberg or something like that. But there's a couple of these guys that, they're just like, work, make lots of money.
Gary Vaynerchuk.
And he's got great points about everything. And I'm not saying I'm not slandering people for whatever, but like, a lot of this stuff is case to case. And you know what? A lot of this stuff has to do with, we got to find a way to, hey, maybe instead of like doing that drug or finding that vice, like, go seek help and have a conversation. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, how many guys go out west to go on the oil rigs, and it's hard, dirty work, and you're making tons of money, but you're trying to deal with it, and then you end up being addicted to crack. Like, that happens so often, and you can't tell me that doesn't coincide with depression. And it's such a macho, masculine word. It's like, well, I could deal with that, or I could buy the world's biggest truck and just, take these pain meds and call it a day. And, like, I'm guilty of that myself. Sometimes it's just like, it's been a hard week. I feel like crap. I really want to get drunk this weekend. It's like, yeah, all right, well, maybe there's something better you can do.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's a narrative that is pushed, is that work, hustle, work 24/7, grind, and I've used those hashtags and I've used that terminology. And then I thought about it and I thought, you know what? Like, no, you can't work 24/7. You can't grind. You can grind and hustle and do all those things, and that's great.
Yeah.
You have to rest. I don't care who you are. What those people don't show is, when do they do sleep, they do take time off, but that's because social media is geared towards, you think that that's what's happening right now, and that's all they do. That's not their life, right? So
no one takes pictures of themselves crying, right? Like,
right.
So you see, all you see is like, you're flipping through your phone and you're like, oh, this guy's killing it. Oh, this guy's having the fantastic day. Oh, this guy's on his 4th set. And then you're like, oh, everybody else is doing so well. But like, if we were to be honest, I bet there's a lot more like, and I'm not saying like, I don't believe in like wallowing in your sorrows. And, like the title of this show is, what did you title it as again?
Just men's
it's okay
mental
to not
health.
be okay.
It's okay not to be okay.
And I agree with that. But to a point, it's where it's like, okay, it's okay to not be okay, but you need to be addressing it as well.
Right. There has to be a balance.
There has to be a balance. And going back to the rest thing too, and grinding, like, I'll literally write in a schedule now, Sunday, rest. Just don't do much. Of course, you can catch up on some projects at home, or if it means you doing some maintenance on your rig or something like that, but find a way to spend some time and relax.
Right.
Otherwise, burnout is the first sign of like, all right, that's going to cause some mental illness right there.
Right. And that's the thing that you see. And like you're talking about in the groups, that people are like, keep going. Like somebody will post, I love it when people post pictures that they're with their kids or they're doing something with their family for that day, like on a Saturday or a Sunday or whatever. And, you get the comments and people come on, oh, must be nice. Like I'm working. And it's like, I get it. Like not everybody can, do things, but because somebody's going on a holiday doesn't mean that you can't have that time at home. Like have the day at home, post a picture, you're sitting watching cartoons. Like, I don't care, but like, it's whatever works for you in that downtime, and you need the downtime.
Yes, I definitely agree. And like it's every case is different. A lot of guys, like myself, like I'm a two-man wrecking crew. Like it's just me and my guy. And if I were to say we're working 7 days for the next 3 months, like who's to say that the work's gonna be that great at that point? You know what I mean? Like I know my guy's limit, I know my limit, and it's like,
Yep.
no, we're taking the day off on Sunday. Oh, we have nothing booked on Friday? Okay, let's meet at the shop, spend 2 hours, and then let's go have a couple beers and go swimming.
Right.
I think it's important.
Well, and I think too, like you said, your work, if you don't take that time and that downtime, your work isn't going to be good.
Yeah, I there's probably guys out there crushing it 7 days a week and they could say otherwise, but for me personally, I can't spray that great when I'm super tired. Or like I definitely need to, and I'll tell contractors like that. They'll be like, well, we need it done in a day, and I'm like, no, it's a 2-day process. I'm not rushing it because good work takes time.
Right. Yeah. I think that's an excellent point, is to bring up the whole topic of burnout, because especially in this industry that you guys are in, because you're dealing with, there's a million things you deal with, but it's hard on your bodies. It's exceptionally hard on your bodies and your minds and all of it, and extreme heat and all of that. You have to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Like you can't just throw a little duct tape on it and get back on the site. Sometimes,
Yes.
like, you know what I mean? Like that's a dangerous thing to do, because a lot of people also don't understand, when you're 30, your body reacts very differently than when you're 50.
Yep.
And all those times that you neglected to take care of your body and your head, that's coming back tenfold when you turn 50.
Yes, I completely agree with you.
Yeah. I've seen it in my husband. I've seen it in my father. Like, it's that work so hard and push yourself so hard. And then you get to an age where all of a sudden, all of that, it catches you. And so I'm always like, when somebody says they're hurt, I'm always like, take care of yourself, because it's important.
Yes, I think so. And that's something that I need to address for myself, instead of like I could, like while working, it's like I can live off coffee, Gatorade, and pepperoni sticks. And I know that's not a healthy lifestyle.
Right.
Like we're currently building a new kitchen upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't wait because I want to get organized, get really good at like making, protein shakes or smoothies. And just, I know very well that nutrients is very important for your mental health.
Yeah.
And I'm just not at that point right now. But as soon as I can get organized, I feel like I can be a lot better. And that's another thing. And I'm not saying like, oh, I'm going to, drink a strawberry shake and I'm not going to have to go to the doctors. I'm not saying that, but anything that can help, I'm going to try.
Right. Do you do a certain kind of, outside of work, are you doing like any kind of, are you a gym guy, or do you do any kind of exercise that way?
You know what? No, I'm a man of little hobbies, and I know
okay.
that. Yeah. And it's like, people ask, what do you do outside of work? And I'm like, I don't know. think about work. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
I would like to get to the point where it's like, okay, so as soon as, let's call it, October rolls around, maybe I can spend 1 hour at the gym in the morning and then head to work, because that's a good way to boost the dopamine in your brain, get that
Mhm.
serotonin working, and then you
Yeah.
move forward. And these are all things like, and that's why you kind of have to have the conversation with other people and yourself, because I know that will help. Every time my dog looks at me like, take me for a walk, and I'm like, nah, I'm tired and I got ISO all over my face, instead of, just giving excuses, I go and do it. And then I'm like, hey, thanks, Bronson. I feel great. Bronson's my
Yeah.
dog's name, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? I've, they are my favorite thing when I do my walks is the dogs.
Oh, yeah. And they
I meet a lot
appreciate
of
it.
dogs. You know
Yeah.
what? And it's funny because we've seen people out here. Well, it's a little different out here in many ways, but you see people pushing them in strollers. And I'm like, isn't one of the purpose?
Really?
Yeah. And like a baby stroller. And I'm like, isn't the purpose of having a dog so you're like the dog is walking too, and it's not like an injured dog or an old dog, like it's just people are just different here. And so it's like,
Something else. Holy
really?
smokes.
Wow, okay. But I think it's that whole, and I've been yapping about that a lot too, is move your body, get up and move your body outside
Yeah.
of work,
Yeah.
because, and I don't care what it is, but move your body.
Yes.
And for you guys especially too, when you're like, you're talking about unhealthy eating, that's got to be rampant in this industry, as
Oh,
any trade, right? Because
yeah.
how do you sit down, okay, now we're going to sit down and have this wonderful healthy lunch?
Yeah.
How does that
Exactly.
even work?
It doesn't, like we literally, like, gas stations are our source of nutrients. It's like, oh, I got a tank
Right.
of diesel and some pepperoni sticks and some spits. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
it's bad. And I come from I have my culinary arts degree. I was a chef for 15 years. Like, I know how to eat better, but
Yeah.
it's just a matter of like being or
joins. Okay. Meeting ID number. Okay, hang on just a sec. Hi guys, we're just having some technical difficulties. Bear with us. I am very, very sorry. Just a second here. I got to figure out invite. Oh my goodness. Sorry guys. Just bear with us here. 7 5. Okay. Hi guys. You're getting me in this, but Nick will be back right at the good part. Honestly, I'm telling you these things. Okay, where am I? There I am. Oh, okay, there. Okay. I don't know. Am I back on there? Okay. I'm live. Okay. All right, you guys, there's Nick. Hi, Nick. Are you back?
I'm back, yeah.
Oh, my word. Right. My husband calls me, he's like, what happened? I was right at the good part. That has never happened. I don't know why. Anyways.
You had it set for 40 minutes, and that 40 minutes got swallowed quickly.
Yeah, which it honestly, it's always said it's 40 minutes and it's never cut me off. So I just carried on. So it will be back. Thanks everybody for, I just, it's if something didn't go wrong on a Coffee with Carla live, it wouldn't be a Coffee with Carla.
Exactly.
Now we're going to thank you, everybody. Sorry about that. That was kind of weird. But anyways, tell us, you have a culinary degree, did you say?
Yeah, no, I went to culinary arts when I was in my 20s. And
wow.
So I worked at a series of hotels, restaurants, private clubs, golf courses, a little bit of everything. And then when I started having kids, the thing about being a chef is you got to be like in your 40s in order to make decent money,
Right.
especially in Winnipeg. I think there's maybe like, let's call it 15 positions in the city that pay over 60 grand a year. And I was having my first kid, so I thought, okay, it's time to grow up, get a big boy job. So I got a job at the local provincial jail, and I did that for 5 years. Now, talk about a soul-crushing culinary task, and that is literally, and it was a great job, don't get me wrong. You work with the inmates, but I went from having this extensive, awesome chef training to all of a sudden I'm making bologna and Kraft dinner for a bunch of inmates, and which is fine. The job was great. It paid well. I was okay with completely out, sure, but and after 5 years of doing that, I still didn't get my permanent full-time position. Very much like government bureaucracy. I missed out on a full-time spot once because I didn't have the 10,000 hours in. And then the second time, when someone got fired and I was supposed to take that position, they just said, okay, we're going to do with one less. But it's the best thing that ever happened to me because I went home, I sat down with my wife and said, I just need something niche market that I can do. And then I just showed an interest into spray foam, and then like every single door from the universe opened, and that's when I started doing spray foam. And I can honestly say that I am so happy doing that. Wow. Because I could have reverted back to cooking and found another position, sure. Mm-hmm. But if you're doing something since you're 15 years old, chances are it's not going to be the last career that you have. So starting spray foam at 31 years old was a great transition to me because I've never done construction. I was new to everything. And even now I'll show up at a job site and I'm that guy that's like, oh, happy to be here. And, everybody else is all like, "Ugh." So I really do enjoy it. I enjoy the antics, but yes, I was a chef for quite a long time.
Wow. So I guess when you're talking about knowing your nutrition and that type of thing, I guess I also wanted to kind of ask you if you could explain, because people may not know those terms, dopamine and what serotonin. So can you give us a little insight into what those are?
Well, I'm definitely not a doctor, so
Right.
if I explain things, but dopamine is something that's in your brain that is a chemical that's produced, and it's those feelings of feeling happy, feeling satisfied. The
Mhm.
same with serotonin. And as soon as you start kind of looking into that, and you kind of get through all the fluff of like Google images, and
Yeah.
you start really reading into like, well, what produces that? And that's when, you can start finding natural things to help with that.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying if a doctor prescribes you something not to take it because you're eating a banana instead, but
Right.
you know what I mean? Anything you can do to help. Natural sunlight, like going back to the Vancouver thing, I could never live there because it's so overcast. Mind you, I've seen a lot of, like your posts of it being sunny and nice and everything.
Hmm.
But I'll literally, like, I got one of those, they call them sad lights. It's just like a UV
Oh,
light.
yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, and I literally, like, you'll find me sometimes like in the middle of February with it just like lying on my face, just
Hmm.
because I need that natural tone of sunlight.
Yeah.
But going back to dopamine and serotonin, those are things that are produced that make you have those feelings of happiness and being satisfied. And that's something that I know is one of my triggers is if I'm not craving food or nothing tastes good to me or the music I like isn't speaking to me or making me feel good, I
Hmm.
know I'm at that state. And I know, okay, I do need to address this.
That was interesting because you said that in the beginning, you crave sugar. What was the other thing you said? You said you craved sugar um and that's how you kind of know that there's something out
Yeah,
of whack.
absolutely. Yeah, it's like, okay, you really don't need to drink that fourth Coca-Cola for the day. Those are signs. And if you look it up, like craving for sugar, it's like, all right, well, maybe you've got some anxiety and depression that's like lurching at you. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So those are things that kind of pop up where I'm like, okay, I see what's happening here.
Yeah. Food's an interesting thing because it becomes food, well, it's a social thing, but food is also something that I think we've all probably done that, where it's an emotional thing too. Like if you're feeling crappy, you're going to just eat all the junk in the world because you think, oh, it's making me feel good. And then you feel like garbage because, oh my God, now I ate that. And now all the things. But it's kind of a, food is a fickle thing because it's used to celebrate. It's kind of like drinking, really.
Yeah.
It's one of those things you use it for all happiness, sadness, and everything in between. So it's like if you can kind of pick up on those triggers, and it's interesting you said that about sugar because that is so, I never actually put that, I didn't connect those two.
Well, for me, that's just kind of how it works. And, it all goes back to even self image. Like if you're in a slower season and you've got more time at home, like, I mean, look at COVID. How many people gained so much weight and were just eating garbage just because they were semi depressed?
Right.
And, and that's another reason why I had to leave the jail, because in particular, I worked at a women's prison and they go by the
Oh.
Canadian food guide, and by like law, they've got to get 2 pieces of bread for breakfast, lunch, dinner. The majority of the food is carbs. And how, and this is a provincial jail, so they get released 2 days minus 2 years. So if you gain 80, 90 pounds while you're in jail, and then you're just left to go be successful. Well, that might be a little difficult because, you know, how are you going to find a job or have the emotional stability to find a job when you don't feel good about yourself?
Right.
So these are the things like, and I see this while working there, and I think like, ugh, I don't know if I can be around this.
Well, and that's, yeah, like that environment alone would be hard for anyone's mental health, inmate, people who work there. Like it's just would be
Yeah.
a bad environment to be around.
I'll tell you right now, I'd rather be in like the gnarliest crawl space and spraying foam in there along a bunch of dead rats than spend a day in a depressing, super gray environment like a jail.
Right.
Just me. And I'm not slandering. I mean, if anybody's watching that still works in corrections that's watching this, like, great job. Don't get me wrong. Just not for me. I just can't emotionally do it.
Well, it becomes too the thing that, you know, is important is it's what you surround yourself with, and what it's not just consuming food and what you're putting into your body, it's what you're consuming in your ears, it's what you're watching, it's everything affects the headspace. Every single
I
thing.
agree. Like you can't be like, oh, I'm super depressed on the internet, and all you're doing is like listening to like Cradle of Filth in your basement and you haven't showered in 3 days. Like, it's like, all right, man, it's time to, you know, flip the script a little bit and surround yourself with more positive environments.
Mm-hmm.
That's sign one. And don't get me wrong, I love heavy music, but like there comes a point where it's like, okay, you need to take a step back and maybe listen to some pop punk or something.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of you know, being around nice environments, you know, and that's like winter's hard because the plants are not there, you don't get to see the grass. So yeah.
well, and I'm gonna say Winnipeg's got pretty brutal winters. Like
Oh,
you guys have horrible winters.
it's something, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard, and you climatize and you find ways to make yourself feel better, but it's hard. It's very hard.
Yeah. Have you lived there your whole life?
I have, yeah, born and raised.
Ah, okay. So
And
yeah, it's that extreme cold, I think is because after leaving Saskatchewan, which is relatively the same
yeah,
weather-wise,
yeah.
it's, you know, I think about people will say, would you ever go back and would you live there? And I'm like, I've become such a baby when it comes to cold. I don't know that I could, I don't know I could handle it anymore.
No,
Not that,
it's rough.
oh, it's terrible. And I think it's horrible for all things because you can't, there's a point where you can go outside and it's okay. And then there's a point like you just can't. It's too cold. Like
Yeah,
if it
literally.
hurts your face, you
Yeah.
can't be out there.
Yeah, it's, you know, I think there was one winter where it's like we had very little snow and it was so cold that I couldn't even like take my kids like tobogganing. I'm like, oh, cool, winter's awesome. No thanks.
Yeah. So when those kind of, when you go through that, what are some things that you do to kind of keep yourself, try to keep yourself upbeat and like in a better headspace? What do you do?
Oh man, I'm trying to think because I usually just block it out every year when it's over. I want to say I like to spend as much time with my kids. I'm a huge gamer with them. I like to spend time playing the Nintendo Switch, finding those things that are fun and lighthearted to do. I mean, catch up on movies that you like to watch, stuff like that. Other than that, there does come a point in the winter where you do have to just flip it and say, yeah, it's cold, yeah, it's nasty, but let's bundle up and take care of, like, it's amazing how we're like, I don't want to shovel this snow. And then you go and shovel the snow and you're like, wow, I feel great.
You feel better.
Yeah, you feel better. So it's, I want to say that I have more things to keep me sane, but I really don't. I just go insane and then I do it every year.
Yeah. Do you do any kind of personal development, like listening to podcasts or reading, or do you do any of those things?
I do, yeah, and I'm trying to get it down more to a science. I started listening to that On Ratio Greco podcast, and
Mm-hmm.
that was really cool. There's only 6 episodes. I wish there was like many more.
Yeah,
I'm not much of a reader. I come from that generation that like, why would I
right.
read if I can just listen? I don't think I've read a book since like probably 3 or 4 years ago, and that's a
Yeah.
sad statement. It's probably something that I should have do more. But other than that, just learning more and more about how I can make my job easier. I've been getting really into like the ergonomics of everything and
Mm-hmm.
seeing how that works.
Yeah.
So as soon as you can really start fine tuning your skills on the job site, then you can get better and better at what you do. Then you're taking less of a toll on your body.
Right. And so when you're having a hard time at work, when things are going askew as they do, what do you do? Do you reach out to other guys in the industry? What's something that helps you go through those times?
The amount of support that I've gotten from guys that do spray foam is unbelievable. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that we need to draw from that, and we also need to give back. So when things are going wrong, I usually try to, one thing that I've learned how to do without looking very silly is how to ask the proper questions and really
Mm,
slowing myself down and saying, this is my problem. This is the equipment. This is what I want it to do. And this is what's doing it right now, because nobody wants a FaceTime phone call of a frantic person that doesn't know how to ask a question. So
right.
I've been getting really good at that. And I've been taking advantage of guys' resources and saying, like, hey, how can I make this work? Or what part can I use without having to wait 2 to 3 weeks? I'll
Mm-hmm.
give you an example. I had my compressor, the pump head completely blew up on me on Monday. Like it just started smoking. I know it's done. The thing's 12 years old, but I couldn't just swap it out with another compressor because how this rig was built before me was I can't take that unit out. The full unit won't fit the door unless I get the generator out of there. Well, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going to do that. So I take the pump head off. I find the one to order. It's going to be 2, 3 weeks out. But I had a quick conversation with someone that I've helped before, and he said, listen, I've got this 24-inch. It's a smaller unit, but it'll fit in your rig, and it's a bit of a Band-Aid, but it'll get you through till you get your pump head.
Mm-hmm.
So I've went and got it. We installed it. I got through my job. I got through the week, thank God. And now I'm just waiting to get a permanent fix. So if you have the right resources and you're respectful and you give back, and if you pay people on time, I'm talking about like suppliers, they will
Yeah.
help you. And I
Right.
think that's very important in this industry.
Yeah. I think that is a thing that, you know, by people in the industry joining in the groups, it's kind of created that space where people feel more comfortable doing that, because I think before it was like, well, that guy's like the competitor and I can't talk to him and I hate that guy because he's, like it's that whole thing, right? That
Yeah,
old thinking, when there's enough room for everybody and everybody can make money if you help each other.
it's a very unique setup where you don't see, we have more variables and we have more issues that can happen as opposed to a plumber or an electrician. For a group of guys to come together and say, hey, let's help each other, is just, that is therapy in itself.
Right. Well, you guys all speak the same like for the most part, you all speak the same language. You get what the other guy is going through. I've seen it with the women as well in this industry, how they've connected and, they bounce things off each other. And I think it was just finding that space for you guys to do that. And it's been pretty remarkable, honestly.
I think so. I'm really proud to say that I do what I do, and I'm in this group of elite guys
Mhm.
that like, just look at how it's kind of gone leaps and bounds. Like it's been really cool to watch, and it's
Yeah.
been really cool to be a part of. And, I feel like it's kind of slowed down a little bit as far as content, and it's going to taper out a little bit, but you're going to have a good group of core guys that are willing to help each other out in this industry. That's not easy. Like it's not. I talk to guys my senior and they say, you know what, Nick, if I would have had the choice back in the day, I probably wouldn't have done this because of this, and this.
Right.
And I understand that. And, I'm a bit of an opportunist, and I will listen to what they say and go like, okay, well, maybe I'm going to shift this a little bit so that way I'm not feeling that way in 15, 16 years.
Right. You can learn from everybody else and what they've gone through. And that's how you do succeed. It's learning from other people's, I don't like to say mistakes, but like their things that have been hard on them and stuff, like you can learn from that huge.
Exactly.
When you listen.
Exactly. And, like a good chef once told me that when you're in the process of learning, and, like I consider myself an apprentice in this trade, fully functioning working apprentice, but sometimes you just got to eat big shit with big spoon. Someone told me that once, and like that's right. So if I come across like 23, 22-year-olds on different job sites, or someone that just like got in trouble, it's like sometimes you just got to eat it. Sometimes you got to eat it. You can't dwell on it, but you got to eat it once in a while, and you just got to take it. And it goes back to like, there's a certain cutoff point where it's like, well, just be a man. It's like, you can be a man and you can eat it and move forward, but you're still allowed to have emotions about it.
Right. And I think that's the one thing that I want to get across when I have these conversations with you guys is, that very thing, because that stigma runs deep, and it's going to take a lot of conversations, but these are the, it's baby steps. And I think that's a huge thing to mention. You can have emotions. It's okay.
Yeah.
You're allowed.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just being vulnerable. And, I've become very successful in my life by just being vulnerable and being honest with people. And I don't have all the answers. I will try to find out everything you need, but I don't have all the answers right now. And if you're vulnerable with people, they'll tend to be like, okay, you're trying, I get it.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true. And it's when you open it, and it's a scary thing to be vulnerable. It doesn't matter who you are. It's a scary thing because, you're worried about, oh my God, they're going to think I'm nuts, or, whatever it is. But that is the first step. You have to be.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, I've gotten some flack over the last couple of years by asking questions that people in this trade think are ridiculous. And they'll be like, well, if you don't know that, then what the hell are you doing spray foam? It's like,
yeah,
I'm sorry, but until you make it a certified 4-year apprenticeship trade, I am allowed to try my hardest to do this. Yeah. So think I'm silly. I'll find out the answer for somebody else. Disregard that, and let's move forward, because no one told me that I'm not allowed. Like, let's face it, 2-3 days and you've got a certification to do what we do. And that in some ways is scary. And thank God it's not a 4-year program, because I am absolutely killing it and I enjoy it. Like, I didn't have that opportunity to become a plumber or an electrician. I had kids, I had a mortgage, I had a house.
Right.
And thank God things worked out the way they did.
Yeah. I know when I see those posts, and when those comments come like that, I always am like, no, don't do that, because there's somebody sitting in the background.
Yeah.
And they're never going to ask a question. And then they're going to not do, they're not going to learn, because they're going to be like, well, I'm not putting myself out there.
Yeah.
And everybody started somewhere.
Everybody sucked. Everybody sucked.
Everybody sucked. Yes.
Everybody sucked. It's going back to like the people posting stuff. Like, you'll see guys like ripping each other like, well, why isn't this guy wearing a mask? Blah, blah, blah. It's like, buddy, they're spraying foam in Turkey. Do you think they have a Sherwin-Williams to go to buy that mask? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and then, but then you get the flip side, because you could have 100 negative guys and it's not going to mean much. You got 5 positive guys, it's going to mean the freaking world. You got someone like Mo from Foamit, who just says like, guys, this guy, this is Romania. Like, where do you expect them to get PPE? Like, if you're not going to say something nice, like, don't say anything at all.
Say it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the thing that I always say. And that's, you know, that's a life thing too, because you get people who, when they were a kid, they were like the worst kid ever. Then they get up, they're an adult, they have their own kids, and suddenly they've forgotten they were a bad kid, you know? And they think everything should be perfect, and they're super hard on, like, they don't accept any kind of mistakes and stuff. It's like, do you forget where you were when you were a kid? Like, we all made mistakes. We all did crappy things. We've all done whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're starting anything, I had a guy once tell me, and it was like, one of my favorite stories is, you know, I'm trying to spray these sea cans very nice, you know, a nice 2-inch pass. I didn't have the rhythm down. I didn't have a lot of training. And the guy just flat out told me, he's like, Nick, you're a really nice guy, but you suck at spraying foam. And I took that and I said, I'll show you. And then hey, it's been 4 years later and I'm still working with him. And now I consider him a close friend. Sometimes you need that motivation.
Right.
But hey, the guy said it to my face. He didn't behind his little computer rolling it.
Right.
Like, some people upset me, but you can't overthink these things. You know, sometimes that just means they have trouble in their own life. So look at the source.
Well, and that's the thing too, because when you do look at the source, you know, that's the thing you can tell. You usually can tell that's a hurt person hurting other people. Like, it's 98% of the time that person, something's happened, and that's just how they react to everybody, because they're hurt, so they're gonna just hurt everybody around them.
But that's how they were raised. You never know. You know, like, it's just time to be compassionate towards people's situations, their financial situations, where they're at in life. You know, if we all just had a little more tenderness to us, I think we'd be a better society.
Well, and I think too, with compassion, it might get confused. Compassion, I think, sometimes gets confused with weakness as well. And
Absolutely, it
you
does.
know, and it's so the opposite of that.
It really is. And that's another thing that with men in particular, like, we struggle with that.
Yeah.
You know, like, man, I've had so many times where it's like people have not shown compassion to my situation. And then when something happens to them, I will be compassionate and it'll just be confusing to them.
Yeah. Right.
So, I mean, and going back to, like, I struggle with it, but when I practice it and it feels, I'm like, man, that feels really good. Feels really good to let go of, you know, how I would feel and just practice feeling a different way.
Right.
Gotta flip the script once in a while.
Yeah. Well, it's practice. It's hard, and it's practice, because sometimes you just don't want to be compassionate to somebody else. You know, like, it's taking the high road, and it's doing those things that it can be hard. Yeah. I'm gonna there's some comments on here, so let me just go in here. Hang on a second.
There's just a bunch of things like, Nick, you're a pussy.
Right.
Internet trolls.
Yeah, all these bad people from worldwide are on here. They're gonna just start being nasty. Oh, my husband is asking, Rex is asking, are there other alternatives to what you do aside from taking antidepressants?
I probably goes back to nutrition, so I should probably look into that, but I don't know.
Okay. let me see here. Dave George, anyone I work with, I tell them if you're not having fun and laugh a little when you work, what's the point?
Absolutely, Dave. And you're the king of the laugh.
Right?
Yeah,
You,
absolutely.
I don't care if Dave does a video and that giggle comes on, you're gonna laugh. So
I want it as a ringtone. So if you guys can make that happen, that'd be sweet.
Mike, can you make that happen for us? We'll just start marketing Dave's giggle for everybody.
Totally.
Keith Bowie wants to know, he said, how do you handle difficult times with your spouse? Do you have keywords to give a heads up? How do you warn your wife when you're struggling? How does your wife check in on your emotional state without creating stressful moments?
Oh, Keith, that's a great question. And that comes with practice, and that comes with communication, and that comes from just having an understanding, solid wife that I have. I will be honest with her and say, I'm struggling with this right now. I'm stressed out right now. And she'll say, how can I help? And I'll say, you can do this, this, or this. Or I will just, it's one of those things like well, how can I help with the business, Nick? Well, I don't know if you can, because this is a very personal craft. When someone calls me and says, I need this sprayed, she's not going to know what I mean, and she's not going to know what they mean. So I think that I need to find other ways to like release stress, but she's also allowing me to do this trade and she's raising the kids. Obviously we're doing it together. So yeah. Finding that time when the kids are asleep to have, a 25-minute conversation before you guys go to bed, I think is very important.
Right. Communication is so huge. So huge. So, and this thing is going to end on us again in 10 minutes. I just got a notice. So, Kim Riley said, we've had issues in the past and the amount of support that came to our aid was mind blowing, especially Robin Pence. She's the bomb. And Nick Hughes, without him, we wouldn't have made it this far.
Cool.
Yeah. So it's having that, it's good having that support work-wise and at home. And I think it all goes back to what you're saying. It's having that communication, being able to be vulnerable.
Yeah. And we know what, we've got such good suppliers in Canada where it's like, listen, I'm having this issue. Kate, let's get you on FaceTime with this tech support, because this trade is like an emotional roller coaster sometimes. Right. It's like you got work that's backing up, you got some equipment failure. If you don't have that person then and now, like it's kind of pointless at that point. So we have those supports, which is great.
Yeah, that is awesome. And I think that I'm glad Keith asked that question, because I think that is a huge thing where everybody can get into their own little like headspace and not say anything. And it kind of makes everything way worse, because but nobody knows what's going on in anybody else's thoughts. So yeah, communication is huge, but we're going to get cut off. So I want you to do you have anything you'd like to say in closing? I'm so glad you came on. Thank you for coming on, for sure. We'll do this again.
Absolutely. You're totally welcome. Closing comments, guys, if you're having a problem, emotionally, physically, definitely just reach out. The universe is there for you. Like if you throw something out to the universe as far as like help or a friend or anything, like let anybody know. If you guys are having problems, like I can probably relate to you. So shoot me a message if you like. It's not an easy world we live in. So we got to stick together. We got to stick tight.
Yep, I agree. All right. And I know there's more comments on there, so we can go back through them afterwards and answer them. But thank you again for coming on. I'm so glad you did. And like I said, we're going to do this again. Absolutely. We'll have more of these conversations.
Great. I love it.
Awesome. And thank you guys for all being a part of it. And thanks for you're always awesome. They always keep coming back, even with the technical difficulties. So thank you guys. And we will see you all next week. Bye for now.